Just before we get started today, I do want to say that it is brought to you by me, or rather it's brought to you by another channel that I do called Business Blaze. It's all about business, but it's actually interesting. It looks at the most epic failures and time things went wrong, but also little known successes. To be honest, it mostly looks at fails. Generally, it's kind of just the weirdest stuff that I could find on the internet related to the business world. It's a bit more laid back than this channel, got a bit of silliness and fun in there along with your facts. So if you think that could be for you, there is a link below, and let's get into today's video because we're answering a viewer question. John asks us, has anyone ever really filled a pool with alcohol? Wow, we really are answering the questions that everyone needs to know. How much does that cost? Let's do it. Several hotels around the world catering to the uber wealthy offer a bizarrely specific package that offers customers the chance to float around in a hot tub filled with champagne. As pleasant as it sounds to soak your nether regions in warm bubbly, you'd think someone somewhere would have taken the concept to its logical conclusion by filling a pool with their liquor of choice and swimming around in it. As it turns out, however, this would not only be impossibly expensive, but extremely dangerous too. First, though, as alluded to, while there are several examples we could find of people filling things like hot tubs with champagne, such as one hotel in London offering this for a mere $50,000, what a steal! Every story we found discussing someone filling a pool with alcohol ended up being wildly exaggerated. For example, in 2010, a story broke about a hedonistic orgy of debauchery organized in the home of a British lord called Edward Davenport sometime in 2009 that involved a swimming pool filled with alcohol that partygoers could row across. Now, that sentence probably conjured up an image of people wearing immaculate suits and eyes wide shut masks gliding across a pristine lake of shimmering alcohol, perhaps laughing about how rich they are while occasionally dipping champagne flutes into the water. No one wants to drink, like, you'd be in that hot tub and it's like, nah, I'm not gonna drink that. It's touched my balls. In reality, however, the whole thing was a PR stunt by the brand Courvoisier, and the pool only contained about 1,000 liters, that's 264 gallons of liquid. That's still a lot. That's a lot of booze, it is, but we're guessing most people who read that sentence imagine a proper-sized swimming pool filled with alcohol, not one of those oversized kiddie pools you can buy for about $50, because, yes, along with the pool not even being big enough for a proper adult to lie down in, tickets for the event were on sale for about £6.50 or $11. Not exactly the hedonistic night of excess attended only by the ultra-wealthy promised by the headlines, which, as ever, are generally more interested in clicks than even feigning to attempt accuracy. The same can be said concerning the headlines you may have seen about the Starkenberger beer pools. Located in Turenz, Austria, beer aficionados can tour a castle said to contain the only pools in the world filled entirely with beer. Again, the truth is a little less impressive than that, and while the pools are big enough to swim around in, being about 13 feet wide, they're really more akin to oversized hot tubs than anything else, although they do come the closest we could find to an actual pool full of booze, ringing in at about 21,000 liters, that's 5,500 gallons of beer. That said, it should be noted that it's an extremely watered down version of the beverage. Also, it's not a great idea to attempt to drink the beer beyond random people submersing their bodies in it. Exactly. It's apparently a bit of a thing for some to use the pools for their purported medicinal value in treating open wounds and psoriasis. Lovely. Like touching my balls and my flesh wounds. Combined with the whole warm and watered down thing, it's probably best to bring your own drink. And I have to say, little personal anecdote, I have done this, and there is one where there is just a beer tap next to your like hot tub full of like, it's not really beer, it's just like watered down with a little bit of beer in it. But you do have a beer you can pour from, which is awesome. All right, but let's get to the question, shall we? Because we're already several minutes in. Smash that dislike button. So, how much would it actually cost to fill an actual proper-sized swimming pool entirely with genuine undiluted alcoholic beverages rather than half-assing it like mere plebeians? Well, quite a lot. For starters, you'd need about 2.5 million liters, or about 660,000 gallons of your tipple of choice if you wanted to fill a standard Olympic-sized pool. Sure, we could use the dimensions of a smaller pool for our math, but if you're going to throw an opulent party, best to go big or go home. And really, if it's a reasonable sized swimming pool, it's gonna be super expensive and dangerous anyway. So how much does it cost? Well, this depends on what you like to drink. Starting with beer, you can buy a standard keg of beer containing about 15.5 gallons of the nectar of the gods for about $175 to $200. So you'd need about 42,000 kegs to fill the pool, enough to satisfy Olympic guidelines. This would cost about $7,456,468, rounding to the nearest dollar. Now, you'd probably receive some sort of discount for buying the equivalent of 5 million pints of beer at once, so you could probably shave a fair amount off that estimate. That said, as George Clooney discovered when he attempted to buy custom-made tequila in bulk, when buying huge volumes of alcohol like that, he was told you need an appropriate alcohol-buying business license to do so. Fun fact, in his case, this resulted in he and a couple of friends deciding to start a tequila company, which they then sold a few years later for about $1 billion. As for what sort of discounts you could get, for whatever it's worth here, according to one brewer we looked at, they noted approximately 25% of the cost of beer goes into actually producing the product, with the rest in profit margins, taxes, shipping, retail margins, etc., etc. So, we guess in this case, if you made it yourself and also thus avoided all of the taxes associated with selling alcohol, you might get the cost down to a couple of million, or alternatively, you might be able to get a bulk discount from a mass producer to maybe go down to 4 or 5 million at best. Moving on to the harder stuff, a standard bottle of wine contains 750 milliliters of liquid, so you'd need 3,333,333 bottles and a third of another to fill the pool to the top. Depending on how much you like, it's desperately specific, don't forget that third of a bottle. You could drink the 2/3 that remains as a reward. Depending on how much you like to spend on wine, the cost of filling the pool would vary dramatically. For example, you could potentially fill the pool entirely with Charles Shaw wine, colloquially known as $2 Chuck in California, because it sells for $1.99. And you could fill the pool for $6,633,333. $2 Chuck is infamously cheaper than bottled water in some stores, so you'd actually be less opulent filling a pool with this thing than Evian or something like that. But if you're stuck on wine, in this case, we're guessing there wouldn't be much of a bulk discount, as it's already pretty close to the margins, which is why it gets progressively more expensive the further you get away from the maker. As a quick aside here, beyond this discount wine having won several awards despite its ultra-cheap nature, contrary to popular belief, it is not sold cheaply to get back at the creator's ex-wife or any similar internet rumors. In fact, Charles Shaw himself wasn't even involved in setting the price, as the label was acquired by another company, Bronco Wine Co., after Shaw declared bankruptcy in the 1990s. Beyond the Bronco Wine Company already dealing in inexpensive wines, the real genesis of $2 Chuck was simply a massive surplus of wine in late 2001 and 2002, which caused the company to sell off the surplus at even more rock-bottom prices than their norm. It was that or just dump it into the ground. Sales skyrocketed to the point where it still made sense to keep the price there, and, well, so they did, selling on the order of 800 million bottles of the stuff over the next decade alone. As CEO Fred Franzia notes, when people wonder how he makes a profit selling something cheaper than bottled water of the same size, they're overcharging for the water. Don't you get it? We choose to sell good quality wines at $2 a bottle because we think it's a fair price. We think the other people are charging too much. Okay, going back to filling pools with the swill. Now, if you have more refined taste and wanted to fill the pool with a wine that allows you to put your nose higher in the air when you discuss it, even buying lower mid-level wine still raises the potential cost to well over $20 million at best. The same can be said of barrels of various spirits like whiskey and tequila. Using Jack Daniels as a baseline, a company that famously lets customers simply buy an entire barrel of its product because they're just that nice, as are their lawyers, as we've discussed before, a barrel containing roughly 210 to 240 liters of booze will set you back about $12,000 to $13,500. There's no fixed price for a barrel because some alcohol will naturally evaporate during the distilling process, something colloquially referred to by the company as the angel's share. Funnily enough, from this, buying a barrel ends up costing more on average, resulting in you paying about $50 per bottle. However, it would be easier to empty a couple thousand barrels into a pool than a few million bottles, so probably worth paying for the extra convenience. Okay, so how much would all of this cost in total? Well, it's difficult to get an exact figure because of the aforementioned evaporation, but our ballpark estimate is that it would cost $133,333,333 $333 based on needing 11,111 barrels containing an average of 225 liters of whiskey, each being sold for $12,000 a piece. Again, in this case, we're assuming you get a hefty discount for buying in bulk though, but even if you could cut that in half, you're still looking at a sum beyond the realm of possibility for all but the richest of the rich. So finally we get to champagne. Since the numbers are already getting silly, let's go all out and work out what it would cost to fill your pool with a high quality, well-reviewed champagne like Veuve Clicquot, a magnum of which you can buy for about $150 if you shop around. Once again, plopping this into our little swimming pool equation, you'd need 1,666,666 bottles to fill the pool almost to the top, then most of another bottle to fill it to the brim. This would cost, by our estimate, about $250 million if you got the champagne for the aforementioned price of $150 a bottle. Of course, at that price, you might be able to just buy a producer of the stuff yourself and ramp up production as needed for your pool-filling dreams, and thus, in the end, get the actual amount at cost and without many of the associated taxes. You could then turn around and sell the company after the party to get your money back. Although, given the volume used there for you instead of filling shelves, you'd probably see a lot of your previous contracts cancelled, and thus the value of your company may or may not be what it was before. But the publicity would be amazing. But either way, even if you manage to get it for the bargain basement price of the $100 million or so that you have lying around in your couch cushions, you certainly wouldn't want to swim in it. As you may or may not be aware, alcohol is less dense than water, making it incredibly difficult for you to stay buoyant in, so swimming in a spirit like bourbon or vodka would not exactly be easy. But maybe you're a strong swimmer and you don't care about that. Well, the real problem is the fumes from the alcohol, which in all likelihood would very rapidly get you dangerously drunk. And the thing is, unlike say when drinking normally, where various mechanisms, including in the extreme passing out or vomiting, keep you from drinking yourself to death in most cases, when breathing alcohol, there is no such stop mechanism here other than getting away from the pool to clearer air. Further, that alcohol is going right into your blood rather than needing some processing time in your gut. The result is you can extremely rapidly reach alcohol poisoning levels that will kill you dead. And of course, let's just say that passing out while in a pool isn't exactly a great recipe for living, even when it's filled with water. For further details on why inhaling alcohol vapor is a really bad idea versus drinking it, go see our article on our website, The Good and Bad of Vaporizing and Inhaling Alcohol. But for now, as a real-world example here, we have the case of the Silver Sage Winery in Canada, proving immersing yourself in wine, for example, is a bad idea. In this case, a worker named Victor Manola actually fell into a 2,300-litre, 600-gallon tank of still-fermenting wine in 2002. The owner of the winery, Frank Supernack, reached in to help pull him out, but himself slipped and fell in. Tragically, both were overcome and died before they could get out. On top of that, it's noted that even people treading water in the little watered-down beer pools of Starkenberger Castle have occasionally reported getting a little drunk off nothing more than the fumes they breathe in. But to sum up, any stories you have heard about the uber-rich having debauched parties with alcohol-filled swimming pools are most assuredly myths or wild exaggerations. In the end, even with massive bulk discounts, the price tag associated even for the cheapest of alcohols is incredibly high. And more to the point, just standing near the pool for any length of time could get you dangerously drunk, let alone swimming in it. And let's just say we hope no one hanging around the pool is a smoker, because lighting up near it, well, you're not gonna have a good time. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do smash that like button below, and do not forget to check out my other channel, Business Blaze, which I'm linking to below, and thank you for watching.